Hello and thank you for joining us today. I'm Mike Callahan, your host of the RVAnimals. We're here at the Turtle Hospital in Marathon Key, Florida Keys. We're going inside for a tour of the facilities and meet the facilities manager and some of the guests here at the hospital. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the show. My name is Mike Callahan, your host, and thank you so much for joining us here today. We are at the Turtle Hospital in Marathon Key, and we're with the director, Betty Zirkelback, and we're going to go over why we're here, why you're here, and some of the great causes you perform here, and tell us a little bit about the hospital and yourself.
Well, I'm the manager, the founder, Richie Moretti, who started this 30 years ago. We're in our 30th year. He's still the director and still highly involved. But our mission is simple. We rescue, rehabilitate, and release endangered and threatened sea turtles back to the wild.
So, as a volunteer with the New England Aquarium, I've transported some endangered sea turtles. I guess that was from cold stunning. Is that what happens up there?
Cold stunning, yeah. The juvenile sea turtles, most specifically the Kemp's Ridley, they seem to go around the hook there in Cape Cod, and when the warm water moves out with the Gulf Stream and they don't get around that hook, they get trapped there, and when the cold water moves in, sea turtles don't do well in under 60-degree water. They're reptiles and they're exothermal, so that temperature really affects them negatively.
I took the tour through here. It's great. We've got a number of turtles that have been severely injured, and it's great to see people care enough to go to the efforts you do to rescue and rehabilitate them. We're here in the operating suite.
This is the surgery suite, the heart of what we do.
Okay, we care to pan around and show some of the equipment here. So when you bring in a turtle, depending on its injury and the reason for it being here, this is where they do the surgery.
This is where we do the surgery.
And what are the most common injuries?
Most common we see here in the Florida Keys are the green sea turtle, which are a threatened species list. It's a horrible virus called the fibropapillomavirus. It affects 50 to 70% of the green sea turtle population in and around the Florida Keys.
Now, during the tour, there was one called bubble butt. Apparently when they're injured they have hair in their shells and deformities.
There's a couple things that can happen. But what we see is a real problem when there's a boat strike to the lower carapace or the lower shell. A sea turtle's spine is right in the back of the shell, so anything, prop damage to the shell is actually cutting through the spine. We find it's a neurological damage, and the intestines don't function as they should, so air gets trapped in there and they're not able to expel it, and that's the bubble butt syndrome. Bubble butt has been here since 1989, so it was the first one, that's the technical term, bubble butt.
Huh. Very good. So a lot of your time is spent going out to perform rescues? Or?
Not mine in particular. We live in an amazing community. We get a lot of visitors in. The Turtle Hospital now sees over 75,000 people a year, and there's educational programs like you came through. It teaches people what a sick turtle looks like. They're the ones out there in the water. They're diving, fishing, enjoying the beautiful water of the Florida Keys. So they'll call us or call Florida Fish and Wildlife, and under our permit, we can tell them to take the turtle onto the boat and bring it to us. So mostly what we do is take our turtle ambulance and meet people at the dock to pick up these turtles.
And then treat them as needed?
And then treat them as needed, yes.
Now I read, doing a little research on you,
Okay.
which I try to be a little bit knowledgeable about people I'm meeting. Some of your quotes are, turtles are like the canaries in the coal mine. And what is, in your words, why is it so important to care about the turtle and the health of the environment here?
Sea turtles are the oldest animal known to man. And what that means is they were around in dinosaur times. They've survived our planet for 200 million years. I don't want them to go extinct on our watch. I feel a responsibility to mitigate for human impact. Most of what we see is human impact to these amazing animals. So they are the sentinels of the sea. What we see happening to sea turtles eventually is going to affect all of life. Like this terrible virus that shows in the form of tumors, we can learn a lot about the health of our oceans by looking at these animals.
And I'm sure a lot of people are inspired to help after coming here and seeing the turtles. And
they are. One of my favorite things about my job, Mike, is people come in, they have a little bit of interest in sea turtles, and they leave and they're just enthusiastic, not just about sea turtles, but about keeping our oceans clean, and that's when I know we're doing our job.
Sad, the conditions of the oceans that are increasingly polluted, and hopefully your work here helps get people more inspired to try to change things.
That is my hope, and I do have hope for our planet and for our world. People like you and people that are watching your programs, I mean, they do care, and people want to care, so they just need to know what they can do to help.
And not only just turtles, animals in general, farming methods, it's horrible. And you became a vegetarian in 1990?
1990, Earth Day, 1990,
Earth Day.
on the green in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I was always pretty passionate, so once I educated myself on the inhumane farming methods, it was a very conscious decision. I just call it conscious living. If I can't consciously look it in the eye and kill it, I don't feel I have a right to eat it, so.
Yeah. Animals are people too, so.
Sometimes I think they might be a little more in
Yeah.
tune than us, Mike, honestly,
No
so
kidding.
it's.
I know in the past ballot elections in Massachusetts, they passed the Animal Care Act where they have to at least be allowed enough space to turn around for the
That's a good thing, right?
animal farming. And
Yeah.
the conditions that they raise them in for profits. It's terrible. Okay. Are there any other comments you'd like to make, address, questions
How about
for me?
things people can do to kind of help?
I think that the most important thing you can do to help it is just to care. Again, conscious living, whether it be what you eat or what you're throwing away, what you're using, just those conscious decisions every day. It's the small things that you do in a big way that make a difference.
Sure. Great, thank you so much. Take a walk around and
Let's
look at the
take a
farm.
round, meet some turtles.
Okay,
All right,
great, thanks.
thank you.
All right.
Here we are.
Here we are. You want to meet some patients?
Sure, let's go meet some patients.
These above ground tanks are our hospital tanks, just like in a human hospital where every sick person has their own bed. At the turtle hospital, the really sick turtles have their own tank. This is Blinky. Blinky is a juvenile green sea turtle. Pretty much been through it all. Been here for over a year. Came in extremely debilitated from the papillomavirus. Her paxil volume, her blood volume was so low, she had to get IV nutrition, she couldn't process food. She's really been through it. We keep working with her because she keeps fighting. So these animals are very resilient. Most recently, she had a very rare intestinal issue, and she had 40 inches of intestinal surgery. Amazing that she survived the surgery, but she's eating and defecating, so we're still hopeful for them. As long as they're fighting, we work with them. This is Casper. And Casper is a sub-adult loggerhead sea turtle. And I rescued this one myself. This was a situation where the turtle was out on the bay side in very windy, rough weather. And we lost daylight. It became very challenging. So I procured a boat, some friends in the boat. I went out, it took us a few hours, and I was able to go into the water and pull her. She was emaciated. You can see her beak is deformed. It looks like she probably had a pop injury, most of that front of her face taken off, and she's healed from that. Right now, we're trying to figure out what's going on with her. She had a severe impaction of sponge. The loggerheads that feed in the bay, I think that their food source is probably becoming depleted, and they are feeding on sponges that they wouldn't normally feed on. It's the hawksbills that normally feed on sponges, and sponges are very sharp, so when she came in, her intestines were just impacted with the sharp sponge. So we treat them with oils and lactulose, or you would do a human, and we were able to get that sponge moving, but now we think she may have some bleeding in her intestines, so we're missing that. She is progressing, so I'm still very hopeful. Sea turtles and jellyfish too. The leatherbacks, that's their main diet. The loggerheads are carnivores, so they eat pretty much everything, and that's why they get in trouble with they eat plastics and everything out there. The greens are herbivores, so they primarily feed on the sea grasses. We need to keep our turtles alive so they can do their job out there with the jellyfish for sure. This is Ellie. She is absolutely beautiful. She is a hawksbill. They're critically endangered. A hawksbill sea turtle. You can see her profile. It looks like a hawk, and that's where the names come from. And these guys were hunted a lot. You see how beautiful their skin and the pattern on their shell. So those tortoiseshell glasses and jewelry that you see a lot of times is from a hawk bill. Ellie unfortunately suffered a bad boat strike. We talked about the bubble butt. You can see here the back of her carapace or shell is becoming deformed, and that's because the intestines and everything inside are full of air, and that shell is just growing around it. Unfortunately, Ellie is non-releasable, so she won't be able to go back in the wild, but we got a pretty good health care plan here, and she has a home for life. So Ellie's going to stick around and help teach people about sea turtles.
Cool.
Yes.
So you have 5 permanent residents, 4, looking through the...
We have 5 permanent residents. The other non-releasables we adopt out to zoos and aquariums around the world if they meet the standards of the state of Florida, and we make sure they have a good vet, and that they have the budget to take care of the turtle forever. We call them forever homes, and turtles live a very long time, so they're going to outlive us.
And some of these you put weights on them to compensate the buoyancy?
We put weights, correct. Ellie is able to get to the bottom even without weights, but we do put weights if they're listening too heavily to one side because of the way the air is in their body cavity. We'll put weights on. That's just a piece of squid, maybe. That looks strange. It's just a piece of squid. Looks like a piece of plastic, and that's why they get into trouble. Because I thought that was a piece of plastic in there, and that's why turtles get into trouble because they eat something floating in the ocean. That is squid, though. Should be okay with that.
Is that what her diet basically is? Or various...
Hawksbills are omnivores, so they eat a little bit of everything. Here they get fish, squid, and shrimp. Not too bad. Lonnie Mae had a procedure this past week. You can see there's some gauze there in her neck. She was hooked on a very large fishing hook. It was about this big, and it was through her neck. It left a very deep pocket of infection, so that's what we're treating. Dr. Doug Mader, the veterinarian, had to open that up. So we're doing some pretty extreme wound care on her. Her prognosis is good though. She's on a broad spectrum antibiotic. Once we get that to heal from the inside out, she'll be releasable. Right now we have 46 turtles at the Turtle Hospital. Last year we got 173 patients in the Turtle Hospital. So we stay very busy. Hey Jamie, Charlie showing any interest in food? Charlie here is a loggerhead, and we just found him an adoptable home in Scottsdale, Arizona. But she stopped eating for a while. Sometimes they do that with the water temperature, but she had weights on her. Gas, we all know our physics, when the temperature changes, the volume of gas expands or contracts. And we just took her weights off yesterday because we thought she might be too heavy and that might be contributing to her challenge with eating. So she's floating again, but once we get that figured out, we'll get weights back on her that'll allow her to go down. Smalls, you can see some Velcro and some weights, and that's because we're working with different weights and placement of those weights and try to get her as comfortable as possible in the water. And the other greens you see that are getting to the bottom, they are recovering from the fibropapillomavirus. All their tumors have been removed, and within the next couple months, they'll go back out. Bubble butt. It's been here since 1989. That's the ones that don't scratch. They're very tactile. Their shells are made of keratin, the same thing as our fingernails. So if they were out on the reefs, they would be scratching on the coral reefs. So we just try to simulate that, help keep that algae off their shell.
Is that a male or female?
Bubble butt is a male. You can see the tail extends past the shell. You can determine the gender or the sex of a turtle once they reach sexual maturity, which is until 20 or 25 years old. And at that time, the male's tail grows longer than the shell. So bubble butt, we know is a male and at least 20 years old. Boy, to get in on the action.
They can feel that.
They can feel it. Oh, and here's Rebel. He's our resident loggerhead. He's dusty from being on the bottom, and he likes a good back scratch too. Rebel weighs over 250 pounds. And you can see the weights on the back of his shell that helps him to stay down.
Must get expensive to keep up with the feeding and yeah.
It's not a cheap process, but again, we're fortunate to live in a tourist community where we see a lot of visitors, and the admission to the hospital, that's what pays for the turtle care.
So if someone were to want to donate to help out the cause, go to your website?
We would appreciate that. Yeah, our website, turtlehospital.org, and there's a donate button there. You can also keep track of our patients and our permanent residents, and we have a lot of great stories and always have new information. You can follow us on Facebook, where we do live feeds, at least once a week, where you can see what's going on with our turtles.
You also have an adoption program?
We do. You can adopt one of our permanent residents. They'll send you a letter once every 3 months and let you know how they're doing, and that helps to take care of their food and medical expenses.
So hopefully some of our viewers out there will feel inspired to help support this great cause. Go to your website and make some donations, become a sponsor and an adopter.
Everybody's coming out first class today.
Great.
All right.
What's next?
You want to go see a hatchling? We
Sure.
saw the big one.
Go
Let's
see
take
the
a look at
hatch.
a little one. It's a rare sighting. She's usually on the bottom.
Thunder?
Bender.
So
She's one of our 5 adoptables. They're also called the ghost turtle because they're so white. And this is the species that you brought back from New England.
completely.
Completely. This is an adult female.
Now I understand if you purchase a rescue a turtle, you get the name.
You get the name off of that. So that's one of the benefits of rescuing a turtle.
What did you name yours?
Curly.
Curly.
It had a lot of seagrass on it. Looks like curly.
Breakfast table. This is the prep station for the
Here's the
feeding.
press station.
Interesting. It's very tasty. So they know which one gets.
Little calamari, yeah, their diets are based on their weight. So depending on where they are in the rehabilitation process, that we're trying to put weight on them. But a healthy turtle is going to get 1% of their body weight. We're trying to put weight on them. We'll give them up to 7% of their body weight.
This name Bender, is that from the Futurama series? Or
I'm not
comic?
sure. Bender's been here a long time. Precedes me. This is actually a hawksbill hatchling, which is a rare nest in the Florida Keys. Most of what we see nesting in the Florida Keys are loggerheads. So this is a hawksbill, and she's actually fairly large. She's twice the size of what she was when she came in. She's probably about 8 weeks old. Out there to the Gulf Stream, we'll look for a nice patch of sargassum weed and release her, and that's where they spend probably the first 2 years of their lives. You can see a little bit of our egg tooth left, and that is how they break out of the egg. And as they grow, that'll go away, so you won't see that on an adult animal.
So I've seen some videos in other countries where they do when they start hatching, you see thousands of them going towards the ocean.
Oh yeah.
Do you get involved in any of that? How does it?
In the United States, there are no hatcheries or anything of that sort. Where we see the hatchlings is when they have lighting disorientation, and they follow artificial light rather than the light of the sky. So we see probably 300 to 500 hatchlings a season.
So when you release this one, they go back to their beaches where they were hatched from?
They will. We'll take this guy out to the Gulf Stream. When they first hatch out, they have a burst of energy from their yolk sac, which allows them to swim out to the Gulf Stream. This animal's way past that, so we'll give her a ride out there. But 20 years from now, when she's ready to nest, she'll come back to the beach where she hatched out on. So it's pretty amazing. It could be anywhere. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the Keys, though, just she was so young when she was found. We keep this covered because everything eats baby turtles. So if a shorebird or an iguana or a raccoon were to get in the habitat, you'd eat the turtles. So they're very careful. And this is Bowser.
Bowser?
Bowser is a juvenile loggerhead. You can see he looks different than the loggerhead we looked at that was more adult. You see these ridges on his back. We think nature probably gave them to the little guys just to make them look a little scarier for predators. Again, everything eats baby turtles, fish, birds. Even a fire ant can kill a hatchling, a couple fire ant bites. So they keep those ridges until they get to the subadult age. And you see how she tucks her flippers on the back of her shell? That's because if she was in the wild, she'd be out there in the sargassum reefs floating in the Gulf Stream. The less they move, the better. The less predators can see them. But you won't see an adult turtle with the flippers tucked like that.
And they can't retract their flippers and fins like the regular turtle.
They can, and that's how you can tell a land turtle from a sea turtle.
Now, one of these in here had a couple of missing flippers.
Oh yeah, they do. I mean, they're able to survive. We'll release them back to the wild as long as they have 3 good working flippers. So we recently did an amputation on an adult green sea turtle. It was almost 300 pounds and had the flipper entangled in a trap line. The circulation was cut off for so long we weren't able to revive that flipper. So we amputated the flipper, but she's back out there. We've seen turtles, you know, nesting 12 years later that have had flipper amputation. So the good news is they can go out there and survive.
One of these swims in circles because he has an eye missing?
April, you're talking about April. April is actually a male. We know because April grew a tail and she's been here for a long time. She's one of our 5 adoptables. But yeah, she is legally blind. And but they have a very good sense of smell. So you see her just taking that food around.
Got some fighters.
Yeah, oh yeah. Copper. And Copper is hungry, waiting for his breakfast.
Opening his mouth.
Open his mouth, oh yeah.
It's almost feeding time for them?
Oh yeah, Jamie's getting breakfast ready. Looking for that calamari.
You know it's coming.
Just by a boat. We're looking for an adoptable home for Brianna.
How long has he had her here?
She's been here about 1.5 years.
So she's stable and healing?
She's stable, yep. She's, you know, healthy besides the obvious bubble butt, but she is a good body weight. Gets around just fine.
Beautiful.
I don't have your breakfast, Brianna. It's coming.
False alarm. See the little fish, they come in through the water tubes?
Yeah, this is a natural tidal pool. It's fed by the Florida Bay, so it filters through the coral rock. The fish come in really tiny and they get fed pretty well, so they get distracted. Eels. The eels, we try to get out of there because they compete for the turtle's food, but they're very territorial, so we'll put them out and they find a way back in through the culverts. But it's good environmental enrichment for the non-releasable turtles. So this we call FP Alley. So the turtles you see in this row have had the fibropapillomavirus. You see Thurston here had an eye tumor, almost as big as his head. Thurston is just about a month from being released. We've come a long way, Thurston. Actually salvaged that eye. We work with a veterinarian ophthalmologist, Dr. Lorraine Krapinski, up in the Miami area, and we take turtles to her about every other week. We load the ambulance, kind of like a MASH unit. We go, I run the anesthesia in her surgery room, she does the surgery, and we resuscitate them on the way back. So she has saved a lot of turtles. When I started, the turtle had tumors on both eyes. They were thought to be blind and they were humanely euthanized. Now we take these same turtles that would have been euthanized up to Dr. Lorraine Krapinski, and she does amazing work with the eyes. Another fibropapilloma patient, little juvenile green, but you can see had a very large tumor. He's missing a back flipper that may have been a birth defect or may have been a bird or a crab. Took it when he was young because there's no sign of a limb there, but was, you know, covered with tumors, and it's just almost tumor free. He's had a number of surgeries. Again, very resilient, recovering well from the surgeries, and next week we'll probably have his last surgery.
That missing fin doesn't seem to slow him down.
No, it doesn't. They're like runners back there, so.
Great. Well, so you've got a lot to do.
Yeah,
Very busy.
yeah. Well, thank you for coming to see us,
Thank you so
and
much.
appreciate
your time.
keep up the good work.
And I'll send you a link
All right.
to the video and encourage all of our viewers to help in any way they can,
Super.
especially financially. support.
Financially,
For the
and
great
tell all
cause.
your friends about turtles. That's
Tell
how
all
it
your
works.
friends.
Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
It was
Thanks.
very
Reed.
nice.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Every year I've been flying for about 12 years as a wildlife observer for the Superboat races. They the World Championship International races in Key West every year, and I do 9 races. And that's one of my favorite things to do. And that's how I met Richie, the founder, because he flies for turtles, and I was flying to spot manatees and dolphins, and he just saw my commitment and passion. But we fly in an open helicopter with the doors off.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's one of my favorite things that I do. It is just awesome. Yep, we have 3 ambulances, and we cover from Key Largo to Key West, over 100 miles, and sometimes all the ambulances are out. Our most recent one, we got partially grant funded, and we use that one for education. So we take this, the turtles on the road, and we go schools, community events, again, teaching people about turtles. We also do a Skype program, which is a virtual field trip. We saw 67 classrooms last May. So we go to classrooms, really all across the world. We've done Germany and different countries through Skype.
That's awesome.
And what's amazing is they can see turtles just like you saw today.
Right.
And they can have question and answers with students
Live.
live.
Yeah.
So it's a great program, and you can get information about that on our website as well. So.
Great. We'll make sure to pass that on.
All right.
Thank you, Betty.
All
Appreciate
right.
it. We'll go get equipment. Kids will get involved in your passion.
They do, especially my daughter. I mean, they've grown up with it. They had their first dolphin kiss at 2 weeks old. So, and I remember my son, he's my oldest, and he was in a carrier on the Florida Fish and Wildlife boat. And I mean, he was, maybe a couple months old, and I was out tagging manatees in a kayak while he was in the car seat on the FWC boat. So it's quite a way to grow up, but they're very nurturing and very aware of the living things around them. That's awesome. On their bikes, and they went for a ride around the neighborhood. It was their first freedom, and I was a nervous wreck, and they come back and they're all excited, and my daughter says, "We found an owl, and I don't know if he's dead or alive." And I went out, and it was a night heron, and they but the fact that they even noticed it and took the time, and we took it to the bird center, and they stayed and watched them examine and all that, so pretty proud. This is my office, kind of like a fishbowl. It was a little bit to get used to with people coming in, but now I'm so involved I don't even notice what's going on outside the doors. So, and you can see I'm pretty buried, and that's pretty, pretty much all the time. We're getting involved with research again with the University of Florida, UC Davis in California, doing blood level studies with medications for sea turtles. Also blood studies to see, how long the red blood cells are good for blood transfusions. There's hope to be the blood bank for sea turtles on the East Coast, so we're working towards that. A lot of cool stuff. This is the educational part of our hospital, very important part, and it starts here, and we tell you everything you need to know about sea turtles, and for the young ones that it doesn't hold their attention, they can color a turtle or put together a puzzle. And this is a schematics. It shows you all the turtles that are currently at the Turtle Hospital and where you can find them. This is a very special turtle, Fleming. Fleming was fitted with a satellite tag this past summer on July 22nd. And it's the first fiber papilloma recovered green with a satellite tag. And you can go online to Tour de Turtles, like Tour de France, tourdeturtles.org. And you can track Fleming, who is now in Cuba.
Great.
So it's pretty cool.
I'd like to visit Cuba.
I've been there the past 2 summers with turtle-related stuff.
Really?
We went and we put satellite tags on 2 nesting females on Guanahatabibis, which is the westernmost peninsula, this past summer, and we worked with a sea turtle researcher there who's been researching nesting greens for almost 20 years. So.
The environment there is pretty pristine.
It is pristine. I did a deep wall dive there, and the reef systems are incredibly well kept. Although the fish life is more sparse than here because they pretty much eat everything, even reef fish. But their turtles, it's a really good, the island nation is a good study for the fiber papilloma virus. On the westernmost point where there's no human development, they've never seen a case in almost 20 years of fiber papilloma. If you go to the other side of the island nation, which is developed, they're just starting to see the disease. So you can see it has to do with development, human development. So.
There are thousands of dogs and cats housed in shelters that need your help. Local shelter professionals and volunteers give their heart and soul to help unwanted animals and deserve your support. Americans give millions every year to national animal organizations, but unless you give to your local shelter, you can't be sure that money will make it to the pets that need it most. Adopt, volunteer, and give to your local animal shelter. To find your local shelter, go to humaneforpets.org.